Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of our PBRTV live sessions. Today we're doing a product showcase, a little bit different to our tuition series with Paul Gratzel. Today we are talking with SIMRAD Yachting with Richard Jennings. We're going to be talking about everything SIMRAD related, but what they have to offer for the powerboat sector, going through the different multifunctional displays, the lower end for the entry boater, right up to the really Gucci stuff. So we're going to be looking at those products, but also having a run through of the latest technology, including CMAP, radar, and also what they're offering in terms of their VHFs as well. So I'm going to bring Richard in, and we will start today's show. Hi, how are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Thanks, Tom. Just well, here at home, obviously, and well, quite used to it now. But yeah, we're all right.
Well, thank you for joining us today. We are PBRTV live sessions we've been doing to keep boating alive and being able to showcase different things to our audience. It's really handy to be able to have you here and give people a little insight into everything SIMRAD and what you guys have been up to over the last few years.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to help.
Okay, so I think to start off with, we'll run through the products that SIMRAD have to offer that's relating really to the powerboat sector. So anything from somebody that's maybe on a jet ski or a small, say, 4-meter rib, right up to your NSS series, which would be used in a more of a higher end motorboat or large rib. So you've got your cruise, go, and NSS. Am I right?
Yeah, that's right. That's certainly the first three offerings in the range. Yeah.
Yeah. And what would you say is the kind of difference? So we'll start with the cruise. What's that sort of aimed at as your sort of person that would be rigging that to their boat?
I mean, a cruise is an entirely standalone unit, single display with power going in, and then the option for a sonar transducer on there as well. That will give a full chart plotter option with the sonar there for, well, obviously for safety, looking at the depth of water, but also giving us a bit of a view of what's happening below the boat. But as I say, just a standalone item. Perhaps, you know, your smaller power boats, 3, 4, 5 meter kind of things, can be entirely portable as well. If you just have shared access to a boat, that can just come along with a battery pack and be used as required. But yeah, a very nice, good value option, certainly.
Great. Stepping up to somebody that may have a 6-meter ribeye, that type of sort of brig, or a small little sports boat. The Go series is a really phenomenal little package for what it has to offer, and it's also got radar capability as well, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So the Go 5, 7, 9, and 12. We've recently revamped the 7, 9, and 12 to include radars. But yeah, again, it's a semi-standalone unit. We do have the opportunity to bring in extra sensors through the NMEA 2000 and start to integrate that into a bit more of a system. But anyone with a single screen, happy with touch screen only, and unless they add in the small controller that can go along with that, then yeah, a really nice fit in even a quite a tight dashboard, really.
Yeah, it's a really sleek, nice design, and I'd say that's a really popular choice if somebody's looking to maybe upgrade their boat a little bit and update their technology. Then the Go series is a really great bit of kit for the most public doing their family boating, etc.
Absolutely, yeah.
For those that are wanting some more features and a little bit more of a Gucci technology, you've also got the NSS, and I have a lot of experience with the NSS. I was racing for 4 years with SIMRAD, using the Go series and the NSS. Can you tell us a little bit of the NSS and the sort of step up from the Go?
Yeah, I mean, the immediate thing that comes to mind is that the processing power is on another level, particularly with the NSS Evo 3. We've got super bright screens on them, so even in the sort of the very brightest conditions that this country, and well, any country has to offer, that screen should be fully visible with the SolarMax HD technology. It's also got massively wide viewing angles, even compared to the predecessors. We can essentially see the screen and make use of the information on the screen from about 80 degrees either side. So if you're talking about sort of a single screen install, but perhaps with a co-pilot or just an interested person to the side, they can still get a really clear picture of what's going on away from that. And add to that the number of options that we have to integrate into the screen in terms of radar, in terms of our different sonar offerings, and the customizability of some of the pages that we have within there now as well. It's pretty much should be something for everyone. And if we do want to go 2, 3 or more screens, that's the fully networkable option, sharing charts, sharing sonar as part of a bigger system on the vessel.
Yeah, and the amount of features in the NSS, as you say, it's fully customizable, and we're going to go into that in a little bit more detail and show some slides and show some features of the unit itself. However, I would say that a big factor in there with the NSS is, you touched on it, the SolarMax HD screen. That's brilliant if you've got the sun behind you. Especially if you're in an open rib rather than a wheelhouse or a go-fast boat or a smaller motorboat. Being able to see that and also see it with Polaroid sunglasses on, it's really, really handy rather than having a real narrow field of view. And likewise, yeah, when you've got a crew member next to you, being able to see rather than have to be at the same angle as the skipper, etc. It's a really invaluable bit of kit. I'd say also, the NSS is great in rough weather conditions because it's got an all-weather touchscreen, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So I suppose over the life of the NSS range, we've sort of gone from okay to pretty good to excellent with the all-weather touch. Anyone that's visited, I think maybe the last 2 Southampton boat shows, will have seen one of these in a specially built pod that was essentially had a shower turned on onto the screen the whole time. And even with that sort of unrealistic level of water dropping onto it, we're still able to have full control without any false touches from that water, from that interacting with the glass on the screen. So yeah, definitely a big leap forward with that.
I think the industry, when touchscreens first came out, they drove everybody mad, because even though the industry wanted to go that way, there was a transitional period where the technology wasn't right there across all brands. And then as that's developed, it's really come on to now where I was racing a 32-foot boat originally with the SIMRAD units, and we were punching through big seas, 60 knots through 4/6 conditions. And you can do whatever you need to on the screen. And also, if you do take a wave over the bow, or you've got some beam sea spray or whatever, it's not going to throw the machine. Whereas in the first iteration of that technology of touchscreens generally across the industry, it would send the unit haywire and it'd be trying to think of lots of things going on. So I think that's a really invaluable bit of kit, especially on the NSS. So that the NSS comes with 7, 9, 12 and 16 size configurations. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Yeah, so your choice fit whichever dash that you need it to go in. Yeah, if you need to go even bigger, we do have 19 and 24 inches in the NSO glass helm range. But yeah, perhaps for the majority of your customers, we're getting a little bit big there.
Yeah, well, I would say also one of the really good bits of kit that could go along with that, if somebody is looking, I think I'm right in working with the Go series as well. You'll correct me if I'm wrong, but a really useful bit of kit to go along with the touchscreens. I know that the NSS has a side button panel control, but having the OP50 is a really cool little device as well, isn't it? So that's a standalone NEMA backboned control panel, which you can run closer to you. So say, for example, you're on a helm where you've got screens that are a bit further away and you're maybe in a big following sea and you're lurching forward, etc. Or like my situation where I was in a race boat and needing finite control, you can control that remotely, can't you, using that controller?
Yeah, that's right. So the OP50, we can now control up to 6 screens there. So whether that be across a dash, as you say, a bit difficult to reach, or even potentially to a repeated screen at a a bigger boat, perhaps where we're navigating from, doing some planning from. That's an option as well. So yeah, very, very useful tool. I'd say definitely in your racing scenarios, bouncing around, rough weather, touchscreen alone is difficult to be precise with, and that's not a limitation of the hardware, that's a limitation of the human hand and ability to keep it steady in those conditions. So yeah, that little controller there can be really, really useful for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, cool. So we've looked at the cruise, we've looked at the Go series. The NSS, I would say, would be for somebody that wants to step up from a Go. They may have a 6-meter boat and above, I would say, probably to justify all of the elements from it. But you'd find that probably like more in your Scorpion ribs, your Axopars, your larger ribeyes. It's the kind of industry standard sort of multifunctional display for that type of craft. Moving on from the sort of distinguishing the 3 models, we also have CMAP. Now, we're going to go on to easy routing. You're going to show us some bits within CMAP. CMAP was purchased by Navico a few years ago, 2-3 years ago. And since then, it's really come on leaps and bounds to be on par with the competition. And some of the things you're going to show me today are really industry leading. So can you tell us a little bit about CMAP? And I know the reveal charts, the latest technology there is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, it certainly is. So essentially CMAP was, as you say, brought into Navico. Well, we were owned by the same holding company as about 3 years ago, and then 2 years ago the decision was made that it would be integrated, and from that time it's basically given our employees the opportunity to improve the way those charts look and behave in our own machines. So within in Navico in total, which is SIMRAD, B&G and Lowrance, we use the Max N and Max N Plus chart options from CMAP. And yeah, just a few really small tweaks even that have made a big difference. So if I just switch over and hopefully share my plotter, which I've got sitting next to my desk here. And if you'd have purchased the CMAP chart from version 43 or earlier and had operating software before what we have now as the very latest, this would be kind of the default view that you'd be faced with when you put your chart in your machine. And anyone that has looked at an electronic chart will probably not be entirely comfortable with that as a view. And actually, just there's one option within here, which is called shaded relief. And if we turn that one off, as I say, that is now off by default in the latest software, we'll see how that image changes to give perhaps
a more traditional chart view.
Yeah, exactly. A traditional chart view is a good description. Personally, I'd go one further than that as well and just say, well, actually, I'm quite happy to navigate using the medium level of detail. So that will just clear out some of those names and things, which are obviously interesting to know, but perhaps could hinder your safe navigation if they just happen to fall in the wrong place and you don't notice. So that is just in itself, and in my opinion, a greatly improved view, and perhaps a bit more akin to what you'd expect from some of the competitors. But what we do have now, though, with these latest reveal charts that you mentioned, is another layer of detail that's possible around the UK. So we've got 2 charts, a south and a north region, and we're using extra data from the UK Hydrographic Office, which has been gathered using essentially laser scans of the seabed. So I'll just have to go ahead and turn
and this stuff is phenomenal detail that you can get. You showed me a rep earlier off Anvil Point, and even areas where trawlers have been. The level of detail it gives you from under the water is phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah, so I should say, first of all, that this CMAP reveal chart is essentially a CMAP Max N Plus. We have all of that same detail, so we can see there we've got our dynamic icons giving us our tidal information. We've got our port plans, etc., which we can go on to show you one of those in just a moment. But yeah, if we zoom out a bit, we'll be able to see that everywhere where we've got these other colors, this is where we've got the reveal data. So as I said, these laser scans down near Anvil Point. This is where we have a wreck called the Kiara, just down here. And if I zoom in on that, you'll see really clearly on the seabed about 100-meter long wreck amongst all of this crazy bathymetry. And you look at that and think, well, that can't be right. But then if you do visit somewhere like Lulworth Cove or Durdle Thor and see how the rock strata have been pushed and moved around, then you can start to understand how this could be exactly what we see below the water. Again, another couple of wrecks there, smaller wrecks marked on the chart and clearly visible. So if we're looking at doing a bit of fishing or diving, this kind of level of detail could be just invaluable. If we move across back into Pool Bay, then this is a little area that I was actually out myself at the weekend. So this is Inner Pool Patch or Woodbury Rocks, and if we see there, we can see just literally where the individual rocks are, and this is the section we were talking about earlier, which I believe, although don't know for sure, is where there's been some drag trawling there, and they've disturbed the seabed apart from in this location. And when we just compare that, when we compare that to the level of detail we'd have had on just the shaded relief, it's really night and day. So I talked about the divers and the fishermen perhaps that would be interested in this data, but if you are in an area, a patch of ground unknown to yourself, and you're looking to anchor up for the day or for an evening, it could help you as well to really find those spots that you basically need to avoid to make sure that your anchor comes back up when you want it to. So yeah, in terms of that reveal chart, that is, I think,
phenomenal, but
potentially a bit of a game changer. I mean, I've seen others doing a similar thing, but just very near shore. But yeah, some of the range that we get there is pretty impressive.
Yeah, great stuff. Well, I want to also touch on custom dashes, because that's we're going to talk about engine integration with Mercury, with Suzuki, Yamaha, Evinrude, and then going into being able to run manual Nemo digital data into the screens as well. But being able to have a custom dash, that really enables the user to be able to really fine-tune their displays to the information that they really desire, isn't it? So can you, can you bring up the GPS again and show us, or your PC, and show us how the custom dashes work?
Yeah, I can do. So I'll just give you a very quick overview of essentially integration of engines with SIMRAD. So we can see here just that the three levels of integration. So we do have a couple of companies that we work with exclusively. So the big one that many will know about is the tie-up with Mercury via the VesselView Link hardware. We do have also a custom option with Suzuki. So if we have the correct engine interface and a compatible engine, we can plug those in to our system, be completely gaugeless for all of our alarms and alerts. With the Mercury, we also get control of some of the features of the engine. So active trim, for example, cruise control, smart tow, all of those can be controlled through the screen. For Yamaha and Evinrude, we've got some, again, custom pages, but this time they are available on the hardware of others. So if we've got, again, the correct interface cable coming into the system and the right software, then we will be able to have actually a Yamaha or an Evinrude logo on the panels available to us, and that will bring up this view here. If we've got an engine that's not supported in any of those, then we've just got this generic instrument page. This has several sort of presets that we can use, but now for the first time in, well, it was the 19.1 software and beyond, then we have the opportunity to actually customize that page entirely to our preference. I'll switch over again, if I may, to the plotter.
Yeah, that custom dashboard really enables you to be able to display the information that you need. Previously, you had traditionally a grid list, and you could just hit that particular block, then choose what data you wanted to send to there. But you've really got a way of really bespoking that now, haven't you?
Yeah, that's right. So as of 19.1, we've got this as our instrument page, and as I said, various different presets that we can use for different scenarios that we think might be useful. But then, yeah, the other option would be to go into a completely custom dash starting from blank. And here I can basically choose whatever I want to go onto this page. I've got options of gauges, complete half gauges, whatever I like, and I can just pick those out, drag them onto the screen. I can change the size of them as I wish and move them around. I've even got the opportunity to add in, if I wanted to, decorations, as it's called here. So this can just be simple decorations, or I can even add in images as well. So if I wanted to, if I were maybe a small boat builder just putting out a few boats a year, I could customize this page with my logo on there to make it, you know, a nice unique feel for my customers. Or as a private individual, I might say, well, you know what, I'd like the name of my boat, or I would like a picture of my boat even, and we can have that on the background and set it up. And the beauty of this as well is that we don't just have these presets with all of the bars and things that you might not actually have the data on your system to fill them. So rather than having blank spaces, we can just make this look however we want with any bit of data that is available from the system that we have running. So yeah, really quite a nice tool. If you spend a little bit of time to play with it, to interact with it, then yeah, a lot of options there.
Great, and I know, yeah, from personal experience using the vessel view integration, it really is seamless, and it looks pretty much, well, it is, it's all integrated. So you can also have it as a side strip as well. So if you're on a main navigational screen, you can divide your screen up to all the information that you need, especially on these larger ones like the 12 or 16 NSS, which I was using. You can basically segment it into some really still large, decent screens to be able to see everything that's going on in the boat all at one time. Before we move on to VHF and radar, I want to just quickly jump back into SIMRAD, because you touched on it there earlier, where we could see the tidal information, and we've been teaching over the last few weeks about planning and learning how to go to sea safely, and a lot of that passage planning obviously involves looking at tidal streams, etc. But also, if somebody's wanting to visit a new marina for the first time, or into a little area where they don't know too much information, CMAP now brings up really great information of marinas. And could you fire up the SIMRAD again and show us the CMAP, maybe for, say, for example, Cowes, a popular boating destination?
Yeah, sure, no problem. Just bear with me 1 second. There we go. So as we can see, still got the reveal turned on there, giving us some information in the Solent. But yeah, this is another area that's really been improved in the last the last few releases. So let me just turn off that shaded relief to give us our more traditional view. So I think in 2019, 2020, the CMAP guys updated around about 3,500 port plans across Europe, and that was partly done using satellite images and a bit of AI technology to fill in the blanks. But then, yeah, if we come into somewhere like Cowes, then we can get information popping up on the screen to tell us the sort of services, the facilities that we have in these places. as well as the location of visitor berths, and various bits like that. So we can actually converse as we're coming into the marina and look at this chart plan and know exactly where we're going, and then where we need to go to sort of make the most of those facilities whilst we're there. So yeah, quite a nice little touch, and a lot of work going into that. And yeah, again, from the version 43 onwards, where we had full control over the data on the cards and how it appears, it's really come on leaps and bounds.
Yeah, great. Well, I think that's a really good way of showing the as you say, the leaps and bounds, the advances of CMAP, and some of those really useful features, and especially like that Recon at Alpha Anvil point, being able to see that LiDAR information is just amazing. So there's a couple of questions. So somebody's asked, can I get this custom dashboard for the twin Yamaha 115s on my 2006 camera? I would say personally, I may be wrong, you can correct me, but I would say a 2006 Yamaha, you'd need to be manually routing into the NEMA backbone and running that. I'm not sure. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd have to dig out an integration presentation to be 100% sure, but I do think that the full Yamaha integration is a little bit later on. Yeah, good question. I'd probably have to advise if you could send us an email to service.uk@navico.com. Happy to look into that in a bit more detail and give you some specifics when I've got the data to hand. It's right on the borderline, sort of 2000. I mean, the earliest integrations we have, sort of in the Mercury world, we go back to anything that's SmartCraft compatible. So I think that's maybe like the Optimax 2-strokes, 2002, 2003 maybe, and then the various other manufacturers have picked it up to different degrees at various points throughout their manufacturing. So
so this customer, Graham Dunn, he can go to his local dealer for SIMRAD, or contact you guys directly and be able to check his configurations with his Yamaha.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're happy to help with things like that. Yeah, sorry, I don't have every single manufacturer and all of the possibilities stored in my head, not just yet, but.
The next one is that Jonathan Ralphs has asked about the Go 7X SE. Is that included in the latest software updates?
I don't believe we did update the XSE. Most of the improvements that went in were towards the new radars and the way that they interact. We have had a few people ask the question though, so I will certainly make a note to bring it up with the product experts, the product managers, and see if there will be anything further for that product. But yeah, it's about 2 years ago that the XSE was, well, not replaced, but we had the XSR available from then. And yeah, obviously through various retailers, people will have been able to buy them more recently than that.
Yeah, okay, cool. So I want to talk a little bit about the Halo radar. This is where we get a little bit nerdy and geeky. But there's been real advancements made in radar technology, from the days of frying your brain if you were anywhere near one, to the sort of 3G, 4G radars, to now what you have is the Halo. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? And I know we're going to see some slides later on. You do a lot of your testing out of Auckland Harbour, so you're going to show some bits there. But can you show some of your very nerdy slides on the difference between the different radar setups?
Yeah, apologies. This is well, I do come from a technical support background, so nerd mode is pretty much my modus operandi. But let's have a quick look. I'll try and keep it as brief as I can, just an overview of, like you say, radar over the last few years. So yeah, if we go back 10 years or so, we're talking about pulse radars, super high power transmissions, good for long ranges, not so good in short ranges. We as Navico, and via an acquisition of a company called Navman, were the first into the recreational market with these frequency modulated compressed wave radars. So this is the 3G and the 4G, and we are talking about less than a watt of transmitted power with these radars. So the way they work is they're excellent, extremely good at close range, even down to sort of tens of meters, but then lacking a bit at the longer ranges. And then Halo came along, first of all the Halo Open Array, and now the Halo Domes, 24, 20 plus and 20. These are using 25 watts for, well, for everything except for the 20. The Halo 20 uses 6 watts. And again, a slightly different technology. So this is a traditional magnetron radar, so an incredibly short pulse. We're talking billionths of a second. We transmit at a single frequency and then just listen for what comes back. And obviously the time and the bearing can tell us where those targets are. With the frequency modulated, so 3G, 4G, we actually transmit over a much longer period. So this might be up to 30 milliseconds, but the tone, the frequency just gradually increases in a linear fashion over the whole of the transmission. And that means we can actually transmit and receive at the same time, because the frequency we're receiving at any moment is different to the frequency we're transmitting at. And that over that longer transmission, we get a similar, almost equivalent amount of energy out and onto the targets, even though we're only transmitting a fraction, a tiny fraction of the power. Now, what Halo does is we use chirps. So this is not just a single linear tone rising up, it is a pattern. And depending on the width of that chirp pattern, so a wide chirp that we've got here, which covers a wide frequency, is really good for target detection close in and separating those targets that are close together, either side by side or one closer than the other. But then a narrow chirp frequency is great for targets which are much further away. Now, what we can then do is for each one Halo transmission, we use 5 different chirp patterns and then process those individually to give us different ranges on the radar, but also to activate different modes. And that's where the Halo really comes into its own. It's just so simple to use and to operate. We don't really need to play around with settings anymore. The only thing that you might need to touch on is maybe the rain clutter or sea clutter, depending on the conditions. But we can see here a screenshot of Auckland Harbour. So this is at the 1 nautical mile range, traveling at 8 knots. And we're here in harbour mode. So harbour mode, less than 2 nautical miles. We are rotating at 60 RPM, which I think I'm right in saying we're still the only people in the market to be able to do that with our Halo domes. And we've also got an option turned on called the velocity track. So that is our Doppler technology. That's essentially used to tell us if targets are stationary, which will show up in the red color, if they're moving towards us, which we can see here in the yellow color, or moving away from us in like a blue color. So here we've got what might be seen as a pretty cluttered radar picture. There's quite a lot going on, and if we're just watching for this to refresh, well, once every 2 seconds, as we might have done previously on a 30 RPM radar, we don't need to do that anymore. We just get this instant situational awareness that comes with knowing that that yellow target is coming towards us, and it's coming towards us faster than the threshold that we've set within the machine, and everything else is not a problem. If we had red targets that were directly in front of us, yes, we need to worry about those because they're stationary and we need to take action to avoid them. But otherwise, I can just glance at this radar, have instant awareness of what's going on, and know that whatever the range, that radar is working hard to make sure I'm getting accurate information. And I've just got one more performance screenshot, if I may. So this is again just outside Auckland. This time we've switched to the weather mode. So I should say the modes we have are a harbour mode for close quarters and fast scanning, weather mode where we're looking more at the returns coming from up in the atmosphere. So this is actually a bank of clouds which is being tracked, and using the velocity track is painted as approaching. So this is a big, heavy weather front which is moving straight towards our position. So currently about 3 or 4 miles away there. So using this mode, I've got a pretty clear indicator if I'm a recreational boater that it is time for me to turn around and head back into the harbour. So the other modes we have are offshore and bird mode as well. And as I say, we just click here to change mode and just let the Halo do the work. It is a really fantastic bit of kit. We've had these picking up, you know, 2-inch wooden stakes at 2 miles range. So really quite a fantastic bit of kit.
Awesome. Well, I want to also talk about an industry sort of first, I believe, which is your latest VHF, your RS40B. This has got AIS integration, but it's a full transmitter, isn't it? So it's sending out.
It is, yeah.
So what benefit is that for people that may not have really heard about AIS before? Our previous episodes, myself and Paul, Glasgow from PowerBoat Training UK, have been talking about AIS and the advantages of it, and that in a little bit more detail. But your unit's very compact, and it has both features built in, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So as you say, and I think we're right in saying that the first to market on that built-in transponder, so transmit and receive. Essentially, it's operating just as a standard Class B transponder and a standard DSC radio as well. So both in one. It is the main thing that it will do for a retrofit or for a new install is simplify things. We've just got a single box that does need two antennas, so a VHF antenna for the radio and for the AIS function, although we can use a splitter there as well. But just a single box going in without the need for extra cost in installation and obviously extra space as well that would be required for those second and potentially third boxes to go in below the dash.
So if somebody's wanting to look at that new VHF, all those details are now live on SIMRAD Yachting's website?
Yeah, we've been in the market for quite some months now, and in my position in technical support, I haven't heard much about it, which is almost certainly a very good thing. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to. I probably should mention for your own readership that there is another option as well. So that would be a sort of a standard Class B transponder.
So will be your V3100 or something?
Exactly, yeah. So the V3100 is essentially a self-organizing Class B. So it's not a Class A in that it doesn't conform to those regs, but it does, first of all, actively seek an open slot in the AIS slot map to make sure that your transmissions are first of all going into a reserve slot. You're not going to get bumped by another machine. The second thing is that the refresh rates at speed are massively higher. So any Class B, standard Class B on the market will look for an active slot and will attempt to transmit into it. But if you've got two devices that have both identified the same active slot, one of you is going to miss out. And also above 3 knots of boat speed, you're going to have a maximum transmission rate of once every 30 seconds. Now, I'm sure there are plenty of people listening to this or watching this later, and their boats are capable of speeds in excess of 60 knots. And obviously at 60 knots in 30 seconds, we've covered half a mile. So that Class B plus V3100, that first of all gives us an intermediate transmission period, and then at speeds above 23 knots, we'll be transmitting every 5 seconds, if I remember correctly, which makes obviously a huge difference if you're hoping to be seen by those around you. Although, of course, in line with what Paul says, if you're traveling at 60 knots, please do so when it's safe to do so.
Yeah, and I was recently running an American boat running 120 knots or so with the SIMRAD gear, and yeah, you count on the refresh rate. When you're traveling a football pitch every second, you want to make sure that it's running properly. Before we wrap things up, we spoke last week. I was chatting with Jan Erik, the founding partner and creative and innovations director of Axopar. And obviously, since the birth of Axopar, they've developed year on year, and then recently Brabus Marine was created with Constantine Bushman. They have created an awesome looking cockpit using SIMRADs. How is that different from your off-the-shelf NSS?
Okay, I mean, so the main thing is that we've got just a single piece of glass with the screens mounted behind, so just seamless to look at and to touch and control. In terms of the main functionality, so the radar, the chart, etc., the core things that make our equipment good to use on the water, it is the same. But then with these custom arrangements, with these relationships, we have the opportunity to go in and to say, right, well, what do you need on your boat? Okay, so you want to clear the dash, you don't want switches, you don't want buttons, you don't want dials. And then we look at a electronic package behind the scenes using SIMRAD command that can then give those opportunities from a beautiful looking page on the home screen. We can press it, we can see an image of our boat, we can see buttons to turn on and off, different options that might be chosen by the customer there. And that's obviously something we do with Axopar, but more and more now third-party companies are building integration with our systems via the Ethernet or the HTML5. So if you look at Lumishore lighting, for example, we can control a Lumishore system direct from our screens. You've got Victron Energy, you've got Seakeeper and Quick Gyros that can be controlled from the screens, and really just more and more of that through partnerships, through integration opportunities to get those dashboards looking clean and sleek, and like they should do on a boat that looks as good as that.
It's becoming a lot more automotive-like, isn't it? And this integrates another one of Navico's acquisitions with Naviop. So and the cost of doing these things when they were first integrated into really large super yachts and stuff is very expensive, but that's come down now, hasn't it? It's made it a lot more attainable for smaller boat builders, etc., to create a very lovely, professional, clean dashboard display.
Yeah, that's right. So similar to the CMAP integration is another acquisition. So yeah, Naviop, which is now operating under the Simrad brand, under the Command name. So yeah, initially big super yachts, mostly custom systems, so custom wiring, custom hardware, and custom software. It gets expensive quickly, but yeah, more and more of the drive behind that product is to bring it into the realms where a custom boat builder or an installing dealer can just buy just a few little bits and pieces, put them together obviously in the correct way, and then have their own software program which they can then go in and tell the system exactly what it's doing and how it's doing, and that can just be simple as like a little sidebar on the plotter to turn on and off nav lights or anchor lights, even operate things like windscreen wipers from the MFD, and we can also monitor other channels. So if you've got important a beer cooler on board or something like that, if that's controlled through the Naviop system, then we can check the status of that, check it's all working properly, and it's going to be as we expect when we open that door.
So a small boat builder or even a large scale boat builder, if they're looking at those features, they can contact Simrad directly and chat about their requirements, and also maybe somebody's got their own high-end craft and they're wanting to make it more tailored to them again, they can contact you and go through their requirements.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's something that's evolving all the time. Over the last couple of years, it's again another one, I'm going to say, leaps and bounds. And yeah, the future in that little world is looking pretty bright as well. But I'll say no more than that.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much, Richard, for your time today. It's been really insightful to have a brand overview of the products from Simrad that are applicable to the powerboat and RIB market. Thank you to everybody that's been watching today and tuning in to our PBRTV live sessions to keep boating alive. If you haven't done already, we're offering a free digital subscription. So if you jump onto powerboatandrib.com, you can get not only our back catalogue, but the rest of the year as well for a subscription to the digital version of Powerboat and RIB. And we're really utilising that technology by integrating new videos and lots of other content that you wouldn't be able to have in the print version. So make sure you check it out and jump on there to claim your free digital subscription. If you want to know anything more about Simrad, just jump on to simrad-yachting.com and the team there will look after you. Richard, thank you very much for joining us. We've had viewers from Australia, from it looks like America, Alaska, all across the UK and in Europe. So thank you very much for joining us today.
That's all right, no problem at all. Glad you told me that at the end.
No worries. Well, thank you everybody again. And next week, myself and Paul Glatzel from PowerBoat Training UK will be back on the early part of next week, and we'll be going through coal regs. Not the most exciting of topics, but when getting on the water for the first time and going through that tuition, we want to go through collisions at sea and various different things that you need to know about boat safety. So tune in again next week where we can go through that further. Again, Richard, thank you very much.